Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, April the 15th, 2014. Now the echo has stopped. And it is an awesome 31 degrees here in Indianapolis. And yes, I woke up to snow this morning. It's actually snowing right now. Just when you think it's all over with, it's almost 80 degrees on Sunday. We spent the weekend outside cleaning out chicken coops and all of that lovely stuff, cleaning out garden beds and flower beds and just, the general trash that collects over the winter from being blown around. And sitting here watching it snow right now. It's supposed to warm up. Tomorrow it's supposed to be back up to 52. And on up from there until next Thursday, it's supposed to be back up into the 70s. But for all of you that decided that, it's the first warm weather that we have, let's plant something. Yeah, you probably got screwed last night unless you covered something up. So, big news last night. I didn't get to see it, because, it started sleeting last night, probably around 9 o'clock. Which turned to snow. I mean, we don't have anything on the ground because the ground, I think, has warmed up enough to melt. But on top of any kind of buildings, roof lines, or anything like that, we do have a nice layer of snow. But the lunar eclipse last night, did not get to see it, too much cloud cover here, but have been scrolling through Facebook looking at some of the pictures, and it was just spectacular. I know, much anticipated, oh my goodness, the world might end kind of a thing, but looks like we are all here. So let's get on with life. My husband is sitting across the room laughing. I've got to come up with some kind of badge that says I survived this, I survived this. I should have a whole shit ton of them by now, just in my lifetime. So glad to see everybody still here. I know that, last night that there was a couple more significant earthquakes out there, right off of the southernmost coast of Africa. So interesting to watch that. We definitely have an uptick. I don't care who you are and what you say, but, you'd have to be half asleep not to notice all of the earthquake and volcano movement going on right now. So just keep an eye on it, especially those of you that live in those areas. I'd probably be shitting a brick right now if I lived in California, but luckily I don't. So, other things in the news. This is going to be a hash mash of stuff in no particular order. My brain does not function like that in the mornings. So, was scrolling through some stuff. I don't know if you follow Mom with the Prep. If you don't, you probably should. She talks about preparedness, specifically geared towards families and children. Hit one of her articles. She hangs out in the chat room here at UCY.TV on occasion. But her latest article out, and I'll drop a link here in a minute, is 10 first aid skills every parent should know. Again, her page is built towards family and kids, but quite honestly, every person out there should know this stuff. If you get a chance, Patriot Nurse, thepatriotnurse.com, travels around the countryside. So does Doom and Bloom. They also travel around specifically towards, the prepper shows that are out there, but they teach medical stuff also. We got a little whiteout going on outside. Interesting. But anyways, Doom and Bloom, the Patriot Nurse, they both travel around, teach some medical courses. You can get, in touch with, your local Red Cross, whatever you have to do. But get some basic skills at least for your medical preps. It's nice to collect the Band-Aids and all of that, but know how to use the stuff. But, 10 first aid skills every parent should know. CPR and infant CPR. Is first on her list. CPR training has changed in the last few years. If you haven't had it in a while, the 3 hard puffs plus 5 presses are no longer the recommended CPR tactics because the needs of an infant who is in respiratory distress are much different than that of an older child or an adult. Be sure that you get trained in how to handle this infant as well. and she gives some recommendations. Check out what Julie at HomeReadyHome.com found when she trained for the new CPR techniques. You can find training at your local recreation centers, through the Red Cross, or even through programs in your city with the emergency response departments. Always good advice, you know. And, you know, even if your children are grown, you know, what about your grandchildren? What happens if you do come across somebody with an issue that you can help out? How about the Heimlich maneuver? Choking in small children is an everyday occurrence, but do you know when an intervention is mandatory? Do you know the signs of choking, as well as how to perform this life-saving skill? And do you do differently for an infant as with an older child? Definitely something that you need to look out for. My tongue is not awake yet. Number 3, how to clean and dress a wound. Back in the earlier days, my husband cut his shin while mowing the lawn. We didn't know that's what it was at first, but it seemed like just a cut gone a little wrong. It was a jagged wound, and little did we know that a treatment of hydrogen peroxide that we'd always use on cuts was actually bad for a cut like this one. We've since learned better and have brushed up on the care and keeping of all sorts of wounds to be sure we're giving ourselves the best leg up to fight infection and promote good healing. And she does have a video here by the one and only Patriot Nurse about how to apply a Band-Aid correctly. Yes, there's a bad way and a good way to apply Band-Aids. But again, Patriot Nurse, she'll be in here in Indianapolis the first part of June. She does teach a 101 and a 201 class. The 101 is basic stuff. Bring some extra cash with you because you can purchase, and I hope she didn't change this or I'm going to look like an idiot more so than I always do. She usually has things for sale. Blood pressure cuffs, that thingy that reads your heartbeat. I can't think of what it's called right now. Yeah, Eddie's giving me hand motions over here, but he doesn't know what it's called either. Right up, it's too early yet. Just the simple things that you need in your medical supply kit. She does have there for purchase. She also gives you, but you can purchase the nurse's drug guide, that enables you to look up any medication, any prescription medication, and be able to know what it's for and how much to administer to someone based upon their age and their weight. That way, if you do find some medication that's been lying around, it might help you better on if you can utilize that. But then she goes into the 201 class, which goes more into childbirth and some more intense, off the road, off the grid kind of medication. So I've already taken her 101 class, looking forward to taking her 201 class when she gets here. But always a good thing to have more medical preps. I think one of the areas of preparedness that most people talk about being lax in is medical. So there are opportunities out there, not just her, but the Red Cross and your local fire department sometimes can put on CPR classes and whatnot. So just get out there and get the information before you need it. Next one, how to treat diarrhea. And I'll bring this up again. You know, Rachel talks about in the Patriot Nurse, you know, in a downgrade situation, you'd stand a better chance of dying from diarrhea than you would from a gunshot wound. In a downgrade situation, water supply will get contaminated quickly, and you know, which is not going to do well for your internal organs. So, how to treat diarrhea? Dehydration from diarrhea and vomiting are some of the quickest ways a child can end up in the hospital. Being sure to understand when to give fluids, when to stop, and how to feed during times of severe intestinal issues is the job of a parent. Being familiar with the BRAT diet, rehydration with the correct kinds of fluids, and watching for signs of dehydration and taking the next steps are easy things for you to master. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the BRAT diet. So signs of diarrhea, of course, are abdominal pain, bloating, cramping, frequent loose, watery stools, nausea, and urgency. And just what you wanted to wake up to on a Tuesday morning. So, in adults, temporary diarrhea in itself usually isn't harmful, but it can sometimes signal more serious problems. In part because of their smaller body volume, children can suffer serious consequences from prolonged diarrhea. Parents should see the doctor if they experience any of the following symptoms: blood or pus in the stool, black tarry-looking stools, diarrhea that lasts longer than 3 days, fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, severe abdominal or rectal pain, and signs of dehydration. Causes of diarrhea could be a number of things, from any type of bacterial infection, E. coli, anything like that, to a viral infection, to parasites, especially kids that live out on the farm. Wasn't abnormal for a lot of farmers out there to deworm their children at the same time they're deworming their animals. Anybody can get diarrhea. Conventional treatments. Most causes of acute diarrhea will clear up on their own within a few days and don't require extensive treatment. The most important treatment to replenish is lost fluids, salts, electrolytes to prevent dehydration, clear liquids, as well as electrolyte-rich formulas like Pedialyte, Gatorade. Those can also be helpful. And yes, we share recipes for natural made Gatorade. You don't have to necessarily purchase the stuff in the store. Anti-diarrheal medications, such as Imodium, Pepto-Bismol, Kaopectate can reduce the severity of symptoms, but won't speed the recovery. They also can worsen a prolonged diarrhea caused by parasites or bacteria. If a parasite or a bacterial infection has caused diarrhea, a course of antibiotics may be prescribed. Occasionally, treatment with antibiotics for another condition can result in disruption of normal flora in the intestines and overgrowth of pathogenic strains of bacteria, resulting in a very serious diarrhea. This type of diarrhea requires immediate discontinuation of the course of antibiotics and specialized treatment. Things to avoid: milk and other dairy products, caffeine, greasy and fatty foods, spicy foods, and alcohol. Might be, things that you should avoid altogether, period. On the other hand, foods that are better tolerated: bananas, boiled potatoes, cooked carrots, cooked chicken, plain rice, and toast. So what is the Brat diet? It's an acronym for bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. You can remember that. If anyone in your family gets diarrhea, it could be something that could help them get through that a lot easier. Brat diet is bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. Carob powder can help soothe irritated intestines. Start with 1 tablespoon, mix with some applesauce and honey to make it palatable. Take it on an empty stomach. Blackberry root bark contains tannins, which have a desirable astringent action on the intestinal lining. Take a teaspoon of tincture in water every 2 to 4 hours. Oh my goodness. Probiotics help repopulate the digestive tract with healthy bacteria. Take 1 tablespoon of the liquid culture or 1 or 2 capsules with meals unless, instructed otherwise. It is particularly important to take probiotics twice a day with meals as soon as you begin taking antibiotics. Continue the twice daily ingestion of probiotics for a few days after completing the course of antibiotics. If anything, as a mom, I've learned when you go take your child to the doctor for one symptom, they usually put your child on some kind of antibiotic, which will lead to other symptoms that the antibiotic necessarily causes. But as your child's system is flushed out, more often than not, I know that when my child was ever put on like amoxicillin, without question, ended up with some type of yeast infection on their little bum. which is quite miserable. You know, they're already not feeling well. And when this stuff flushes out of their system, they get what you would think was diaper rash. A new parent would think it's diaper rash. They're putting all the stuff on there from, you know, the stores that they can purchase, not realizing that it is a yeast infection and will need another form of medication from the doctor. So anytime I tell new parents, you take your child to the doctor and they give your child medication, ask what other symptoms this might cause afterwards. Because, like I said, antibiotics, anytime my child was put on there, it was given that they were going to get a rash, yeast infection on their little derriere. And that takes something that the doctor has to prescribe in order to clear it up. It can't just be cleared up with something you have lying around the house. So, and that's just another trip to the doctor's office. They don't like to tell you because then they can't get that second copay or second office visit. So, double check those things. I actually had an employee that walked up to me and we were talking and he's a new parent. Geez, the kid couldn't have been much more than in his early 20s. And he was talking about, you know, his child been sick and they gave him amoxicillin and he's just miserable. And I said, just go back to the doctor, you know, because there's nothing you could do. Just know when you take your child to the doctor, ask them what other symptoms they could get from this. Alrighty. So, now on to how to treat and wrap a sprain. Always good information to know. And, she mentions here, is it heat or cold? Do I wrap tightly or wrap up to the knee? Knowing how to properly wrap, when to wrap, and how to treat can save your child pain and further injury until you can get medical help. Remember to use the Rice method correctly to treat sprains and strains, which is the Rice. What is the Rice method, you ask? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. More good advice, how to treat a broken bone. Just like with sprains, knowing how to splint and treat a broken bone until you get further help can save further damage. One thing to remember, if you don't see evidence of a lack of blood flow, it's better to not try to reset the bone yourself. Just stabilize until you're able to get further medical help. And then she does have plenty of links in here on how to splint and treat a broken bone with each of the categories that she has. So how to treat a burn. Always good advice. You know, one thing that we look at, do we have an aloe plant in our house? Oh my goodness. I think every prepper out there wouldn't be a prepper if they didn't have an aloe plant in their house. But there's definitely information that you need pertaining to, is it a first, second, third degree burn, and what you need to do. How to stop severe bleeding, from wounds until medical help can arrive or you can get, somewhere. Next is how to treat shock. Might be good information to know, especially in a downgrade situation and everybody freezes up. And knowing when to take care of something yourself, when to seek the assistance of a doctor, or when to call 911 is hard for parents. It can be hard to separate the emotion from the situation and know how to proceed from it, seeming a simple cold that just won't go away, to the need for intervention because it really is pneumonia. Something that we have to determine, you know. I know my oldest, he's 24 right now. When he was probably about a year old, he ended up with fever. Did not know what it was, you know, figured it was a typical cold. And the fever quickly turned for the worse, and he ended up having convulsions. You know, that's a sign that this is beyond your control at that point. Called the ambulance. Of course, they got lost on the way to the house, could not find us, and turned into an even worse situation. My son, thankfully, is fine and recovered, but he had an upper respiratory infection gone wrong. So, you know, as a parent, it's hard to make those determinations, especially a newer parent. You know, I've been through multiple children at this point. Does not mean I know everything. I know I've talked to the older generation. They have their, they had their ways of doing things. And I know they mean well, but sometimes it is what it is. The medical practice has improved greatly over the years. And, sometimes there is a better way of doing things, but you don't know that until you get out there and you research. So definitely some great information from Mom with a Prep. And she does link here to the Patriot Nurse for her Medical Prep 101 and 201 classes. And so check out both the sites and try and hook up and link up with somebody in your area that can get you the necessary treatment. It's better to get the training now before you need it. Don't learn that stuff from the situation, get it done now. So that is dropped in the chat room. You can always go to momwithaprep.com, or I think I have her up now, linked on our website. Either way. So other things in the news. So if you live in the state of Missouri, excuse me, or traveling through the state of Missouri anytime soon, something that you need to know about is they will fire deafening sound cannons at drivers to deter work zone speeding. Bad enough that people drive these areas to begin with like crazy idiots. The roadways where there's any kind of road construction is typically narrower than the road normally is, and half the time you feel like you're going to fall off the road to begin with because they have you driving over to a makeshift patch of tar that they slap together in order to allow you to go through while they're working on the road. And do people follow the speed limits? Oh, heck no. I don't think I've ever driven through a work zone where people actually were adhering to the speed limits. And you're trying to dodge cones and everything else. So now the brilliant minds in Missouri have come up with a way to fix this. Apparently the threat of a costly ticket isn't enough to slow down drivers passing through the work zones on Missouri's highways. So the state is taking extreme measures to solve the dilemma. Missouri's Department of Transportation is preparing to deploy the LRAD sound cannon. LRAD sound cannon. A tool, some might say a weapon, that's been used to break up mass gatherings like Occupy Wall Street, to warn motorists that they're going too fast. The device emits a targeted, deafening siren that easily penetrates the windshield and well-insulated cab of a car, even overriding the vehicle's engine sounds and a radio turned up loud enough to jam to tunes at highway speeds. Isn't this glorious? Talk about freak you out. If you didn't know about this ahead of time, I might just drive through Missouri looking for road constructions. Just check this out. But if this sound thing can penetrate through your car windshield and is loud enough to override my radio when I have it tuned up, which, by the way, I play my radio excessively loud when I'm driving long distances and sing horribly at the same time. So if they can override that, imagine what this sound wave is doing to your brain or internal organs. So the state has already conducted tests with LRAD, loading it onto the back of a truck and sending out verbal slow vehicles ahead warnings to nearby vehicles. But now Missouri has committed to the technology by purchasing 2 of the pricey devices. Transportation officials claim that they provide an unmistakable alert about slower roadwork vehicles up ahead and insist LRAD may only be directed at speeding drivers that haven't yet moved out of work lanes. Still, critics maintain that the ear-piercing nature of the alerts presents a clear danger in and of itself. Well, no shit, LRAD sirens can reach up to 153 decibels, more than enough to potentially cause hearing damage. This is technology that's been deployed in war zones. After all, Missouri's Department of Transportation reportedly insists the tool will only be used at safe levels. But it's easy to see how motorists could become disoriented and wind up in an accident. The element of surprise is an unwelcome one on the road, and that has many drivers crying foul about Missouri's plans. This is just the most asinine thing I think I've read, this morning. So give me a while. I might be able to find, I'm sure, more asinine news out there. It won't take long. And that's staying off of all the tinfoil hat sites. Here's one. This one's easy enough. So, how not to be a stupid prepper. Or human in general. So, where's this chick at? She lives in the she used to anyways, the Dutch port city of Rotterdam. And she's 14 years old. And you know how unattended 14-year-olds can be quite mischievous. She goes on the internet to the website or onto the Twitter account of American Airlines and sends them a tweet that says, "Hello, my name is Abraham and I'm from Afghanistan. I'm part of Al Qaeda and on June 1st I'm going to do something really big. Bye-bye." And then was quite stunned when she gets a message back from American Airlines that says, "Dear Sarah, we take these threats very seriously. Your IP address and details will be forwarded to security and the FBI." So, what would any self-respecting 14-year-old do? She starts pleading with the airline. "I'm just a girl. It was a joke made by my friend. Please don't do this." And goes on to basically beg for her life. The girl has been charged with posting a false or alarming announcement under Dutch law, but the consequences of the accusation remain unclear. She will be questioned for the next couple of hours, and after that she might be sent home during the investigation. They don't know yet. They will have to come out. They'll have to continue the investigation. Rotterdam police said they are in contact with several agencies, but did not confirm if the FBI or any other American agency may be involved in the investigation. American Airlines stood by their actions Monday, despite the girl's appeals on Twitter, including one message that reportedly read, "I'm so sorry. I'm scared now." Well, damn it. She should be. I'm sorry. One thing as a parent we need to teach our children is a little bit of common sense. American Airlines replied, "At American, the safety of our passengers and crew is our top priority. We take security matters very seriously and work with authorities on a case-by-case basis." The spokesman for American Airlines told CNN. America's response was taken down per our standard procedures. In this type of situation, we flag the conversation with the proper authorities and then take down the message. And of course, Twitter has suspended the 14-year-old's account because they don't allow users to make direct, specific threats of violence against each other. They need to then police their site a little bit better because I've seen some pretty interesting stuff on there before. But yeah, I mean, those two stories alone are enough to make you wonder about our future generation. So, still snowing outside. Dang it. It's been a half an hour yet now, and this stuff needs to stop. But so over the weekend, it's a beautiful, almost 80 degrees here in Indianapolis. Like I said, we got to clean out some chicken coops, get some stuff cleaned up over the winter. It's been a busy couple days. Yesterday, worked all day at my secular job, and then my husband and I went to our local gun range, U.S. Defense Solutions here in Indianapolis. And Yeah, it's not a gun range. Sorry. They don't have a range there. It's just a gun store, yet. And, got to teach the Utah class to about a good dozen people. So they'll be legally able to transport their firearms into Ohio from here. So always a good thing. Was slightly shocked about how inept the male population is to fingerprint themselves, though. I had to blow through at least 3 times the amount of fingerprint cards that I needed to in order to get them fingerprinted. But, I guess men have larger thumbs than they could fit into the little brackets on the little card or something. But we finally did get them all certified, and they have everything they need to mail off and send to Utah and make it legal, like I said. So that's always a good thing. Got to meet some really nice people, and always a great time to talk with Chad and Matt over at U.S. Defense Solutions. They're at 37 and County Line if you happen to be around. And they do teach AR building classes, so they have lots of pieces and parts. That's what I think their passion is, quite honestly, is to build those things from scratch. And always a fun time. So, following, I still need to get caught up on some things, but following the Bundy Ranch situation, I know one of the host on UCY.TV, on What Matters Worldwide, was spent a few days out there and was there when the federal government agency decided it was in their best interest, and according to them, I think their statement was that they feared for the safety of their employees, decided to back off and leave. It's great that, the battle was won, but quite honestly, the war is still going. And if you think this is over yet, you'd be in for a real surprise. I've heard reports, and I still need to get caught up and get it vetted, but that the federal agency quite possibly could be on their way back out there. I know parties within the militia are sending in relief troops right now just to make sure that the Bundy household is not left unattended. If you get a chance, follow Vince. Occasionally he got a chance to call in and let us know what really was happening. A lot of false reports out there, fear mongering or whatnot. One of those was that cell phone service had been disconnected, but Vince was great because he called me from his cell phone on the ranch and said, "Oh, by golly, no, it's not been disconnected." The no-fly zone over the ranch did go into effect, and I believe it's still in effect. So, catch up to him as soon as he gets any updates that I catch up to him. I'll see what he's got going on. I know he talked about going back out there. So, always nice to have someone on the ground to get actual information from besides what we hear sometimes floating around, because they are not always true. He did say it was a very tense situation. I think shitting his pants came up at one time because of the fear going on. I mean, this was intense. You got government agencies with snipers trained on you, and you're taking a stand. It's, something that you don't have to do every day, luckily. But it was awesome to see people stand up and back each other up and all of that. But definitely not over. So we'll be following that and see what we're coming up to. I did not get to spend a whole lot of time online yesterday, actually the last couple days. So we'll try and get caught up over the next few days. It's funny though, you think about taking a stand. We all will have to make the decision in the future on what we're going to allow and be permissible in our lives. And we were talking about that Saturday night on After the Last Cup, which is just a round table conversation. I don't think those are taped. I could be wrong there. But the conversation was about, how do you go off grid? How do you get away from everything? And it's one of those goals that a lot of us have. And some people out there think it's, as easy as flipping a switch and making it all go away. Stop paying your taxes. My taxes come out of my paycheck before I even get my paycheck. So that's not as easy as it sounds. Sure, we can go solar, we can go wind, we can do water catchment. But as we've seen in the state of Florida, there was a woman that had all of that set up and she got thrown out of her house. It's a tricky situation, something that, unless you move to the remote sections of Alaska, is it feasible here in the lower 48, especially if you're around any kind of large population? I know a lot of people have complained, or we've seen the stories in the news about you can't have front yard gardens, you can't have chickens, you can't do this, you can't do that. I think people are just tired, they want to live their life the way they want to. Is that okay? Should we allow just everyone to live their life the way that they want? When you start backing off the rules, sometimes that can become a problem, because what I think is permissible might not be what someone else thinks is permissible. So you're opening up a whole nother can of worms. So definitely something that we have to tiptoe through and try and figure out, because it's not an easy, there's no easy answer to it. The government's going to, we were talking Saturday night, about breaking away, and, it was brought up that, just stop paying your taxes. And, they said, well, wait, stop paying them until the government, beats on your front door. Well, we saw what happens, with the Bundy Ranch when it comes to that. As a parent, I can't allow the government to come beating on my door, because that opens up a whole nother issue of they're going to take my children away from me. So, if you're contemplating things, think it through. Think it all the way through. Because like I said, you could be opening up a whole nother can of worms that could create a situation that you hadn't even thought about. It's not as easy as flipping your light switch up and down. We've seen families that have left their country. I can think of offhand a family in Germany that left. They were homeschooling. And of course, that's illegal in Germany. They came to the United States to have a better life. And, in essence, at the beginning, we kicked them out. We were going to deport them. Homeschooling itself is a little bit, you start doing some research on it, depending on which state you live in. There can be a lot of rules and regulations that you don't follow. You could end up in family court against the state. You're doing it for the best of your children. Most of you have heard my situation with my son. And luckily, Indiana is pretty lax in rules and regulations when it comes to homeschooling. There's still certain things that have to be done, keeping a schedule, that kind of thing. But you get into some of the trickier states, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. So can you truly be off-grid? Can you be truly detached from the system? I don't think as much as people think. So, like I said, when you decide to do something, just research it out. Follow that rabbit trail down to all of the repercussions of it. Because I'd hate to see someone take some advice out there on being, it's our dream, everybody's dream to be able to not have the government involved in our lives, to be able to get away from the system and just live our lives. But, my opinion, that's a lot harder to do than a lot of people think it is. Just do your research before something else horrible could happen. If you're a single guy out there or a female, a lot easier to do than if you're trying to raise a family. So, also in the news, If you haven't watched, and we've talked about this for a while now, for those of us following the news over the winter, the price of beef is expected to skyrocket this summer. They're already putting out warnings that if you're planning on grilling this summer, your best bet is to get your meat now than later. And yes, my husband is over there telling me I already have my meat in the room. It's a little too early for this. So, just, one of the benefits of being a prepper is buying your stuff ahead of time when the prices are low, enabling you to not have to make those, immediate purchases at whatever price they are. When you get a stockpile, one of the benefits of having your own home grocery is that now you can pick and choose when you're going to purchase something because you already have enough supplies on hand that you don't have to make those emergency purchases. So, we get to pick and choose when we're going to purchase and at what price. So, it's always a great, great benefit. So if you don't have your own home grocery store, your own pantry, start building one up because, besides the benefits of always having food on hand in case there is a crisis, it does not mean that you have to, accept a product at the current price that they're paying in a grocery store. You can shop by sales that are going on or whatnot. So always a good thing. But price of beef, again, we've talked about this for a while now, is expected to go up. It's hit mainstream media. They're already telling you to get your hamburgers in before the price increase. Better yet, go find a local butcher, find a local farmer, and purchase directly. We talk about trying to get away from the system. Going and making purchases at stores like Walmart, those big box stores is not the way to do it. Find somebody local to support. At least then you also know what is in your food. I'm sure you'd have to have been living under a rock this past summer to have seen the reports of the meat slime that's in a lot of our meat, to the point now my husband and I hardly even go out to eat to dinner anymore because you don't know what's in your food. So know where your food comes from before you purchase it. If you don't have a problem eating green slime in your food, then you go for it. But if not, stick local, support somebody local. It's funny, there was something, that goes around that talks about, when you make a purchase from a big box store like Walmart, you're just putting money into someone's pocket that, really truly doesn't need it. If you put and support your local farmer, you're helping that his child go to, soccer camp or something like that. So you're supporting your local guys, your neighbors, people that, might be even your friends. So stay local. So more weird news, and, just hit this one. It happens to be on Yahoo News this morning, but this is out of the UK, I believe. Some weird kind of black ring in the sky above Leamington Spa on Friday evening. And at this point, it doesn't appear that anybody knows what the hell it is. And as quoted, I looked up at it and thought, what the hell? It was amazing. So it's a floating cloud. It looked like a smoke circle, but nobody at this point, I believe, can figure out what it is. Unless, of course, you're into UFOs. I'm sure there's plenty of talk about, black holes and, alien invasion and everything else, especially right now with this blood moon going on. So, the Ebola scare, I know that, real concerns about hitting a large population, and this thing has still not been contained. So definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll be catching up to date on that, but, not looking good. And if it hits a large population, this stuff can spread like wildfire. So, and I can't read and talk at the same time. So, we are down to about 15 minutes here. and I would happen to be over on Stelco's site that want to read something, because I think we talked about this before, that a lot of preparedness people out there, survivalists, are, in my opinion, almost cheering for some kind of downgrade situation because they're just tired. People are just tired. They're tired of the system the way it is, and they just want to reboot. And a lot of times, I don't think a lot of them have fully understood the fact that when something like that happens, it's not going to wipe out the bad guy because he's the bad guy. It's not going to pick and choose the people that are going to be allowed to live through the situation. And a lot of people don't stop and think about that. I don't know if it's because of the movies we watch or whatever, but, the bad guys aren't just going to all miraculously disappear. We're going to lose equal numbers across the board probably. But he had a story up here entitled Why Many Preppers Will Die. Survivalists and preppers are supposed to be, by definition, something like smart folks, people who do not trust mainstream, who follow their own path to be winners at the end. Actually, in reality, the truth is different. We all like to say that we are different, but just like everyone else, we fall under the influence too. How many times you or some prepper built or informed, and you'll have to excuse me, he's foreign and a little hard to read sometimes, but how many times you or some prepper built or formed an opinion without even checking it? How many times you bought some item and store it just because you think it makes sense, not because it makes sense and you check on it. It is often easier way to believe others, and you cannot try everything yourself, of course. So far he's saying basically, just because it's on a prepper site, because somebody says this is awesome, make sure you vet it beforehand. One of the most stupid things or worst mistakes that you can make in prepping is to become mainstream. Slap label and prepper on you, and you start to think you are smarter than the others. You may think that preppers and survivalists cannot be mainstream because it is not logical. But yes, we can. We are going to buy items for your bug out bag because someone said it's best for your bug out bag. Usually without checking, who is this guy who said it? Or we're going to say, I must have the best shotgun for shit hit the fan because someone put huge amount of money for marketing on it. If most preppers look at their storage, they can find items that they know, in theory, have no theory of using it, but never have used it. We call those, what do I call those? Sofa preppers, couch preppers. They watch the stuff on TV, and they collect all of the stuff, but they never use it. So the problem here is not buying these things. The problem is with forming your own opinion, and many survivalists think they know, and they have plans, but that makes them in reality less flexible to consider all of the options. When shit hits the fan and you realize quickly that you have completely wrong boots, or weapons, or Bob, or whatever, you maybe still can fix it if you act. Changing way of thinking or plan is harder. There was a man who, before shit hit the fan, was owner of a few cafes. Pretty wealthy man. He was involved in some crime business, and you could hear from time to time how he was involved in some fight, or he was arrested or served some time. Sometimes he was out of the country for months or years. Rumor were that he was something like a professional thief, specializing for breaking into high-class homes, jewelry, and safes and similar. These stories were rumors only, but in his cafe in town, all guests were his crew, and going there for coffee was not forbidden, but also was not a bright idea. If you entered there, probably nobody would kick you out, but the atmosphere and faces there clearly would tell you that you were an outsider. In short, he was something like a tough guy in city talks. Weapons, secret gambling, prostitution, etc., some guy with his crew. On first rumors of troubles, he started to sell his cafes, I guess in order to leave the area, but he was too late. When shit hit the fan and groups of gangs started to form, he simply gave his cafe to the leader of one group in exchange for protection. Later, when that leader and group were destroyed, he found himself imprisoned for some time. A lot of people around were robbed and tortured or killed. He immediately agreed to write a statement that he is selling all of his cafes to the leader of the new group, of course in exchange for the life and freedom. They had it anyway, but they needed that piece of paper for time after the war. After that, he was something like a lone crazy dude through the rest of the shit hit the fan period. He was nobody. He survived everything, and after that, he needed quite some time, a few years, to prove that he was forced to sell his cafes. Court gave everything back to him. Soon after that, he sold everything and immigrated somewhere, probably to place with less chance for another shit hit the fan event. My friend talked with him before he left the country, and after some time they touched the subject that a lot of people wanted to know. Why did he go down so easy? Why did he not resist at the beginning with his crew? Why did he not have his own strong group during shit hit the fan? Things like that. He had original answer. Every time they were stronger than me, I simply had to let it go. His story is not so unique, but I know much more stories about how folks got killed because they refused to leave their home and run when under attack by several people armed with firearms, while they themselves were unarmed or armed with a pistol or knife, clearly outnumbered. I read every day on the web sentences like, having this gun will save you when shit hits the fan, or with this Bob, you cannot lose when shit hits the fan. Of course, this is marketing crap from people who want to sell you something. People, do not get yourself killed or allow your family to die when shit hits the fan just because you put your perfect Bob on, your zombie survival rifle in your hands and went out to save the world. Or to get killed because you draw the line and here you stand your ground. For example, when they attack your home or your storage, do you really want to die just to hold on to things? In a world of survival, a number of people who are going to blindly believe in their equipment or just blindly stay where it's impossible to stay are much higher from folks who are going to take the smartest option, however bad it could look. This is why many preppers will die. Regular folks will run, but some preppers take so great a pride in their plan or their equipment that they will not make the right decision when it matters because of their ego. I am not the dude who's living on a tree armed with only a kitchen knife and my big mouth. I also have a Bob, a bug out list, a bug out location, equipment, weapons, and plans. But if I see that my survival is in question, I'm ready to say, fuck it to everything. Sometimes to survive means not to win, but to give up and wait for the next chance. Do not expect to be the winner all the time. I thought that was a great story and something that we all need to think about. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of theories, let's say, circulating out there. Do you bug in? Do you bug out? If you bug out, you better have a place to get to. But what happens when that place you get to already has people there? If I had a cabin somewhere, say, in Kentucky, I'm going to get from Indianapolis to Kentucky, during a downgrid situation. If I haven't left early enough, what if somebody has already claimed squatters' rights on it? What happens if their group is larger? Now they have all my supplies and my cabin. I can't exactly walk in there and say, hey, you're in my house, because they're going to laugh and probably shoot me. A lot of times people say, I don't have a bug out place to go to. I think the best course of action is to stay where I'm at. And, in theory, they're probably right, especially if they don't have the means or supplies or wisdom to leave where they're at. they're probably going to end up dying anyways. So, this is an individual choice that each of us have to make. Don't listen to the people online because they can't make that decision for you. Gain the knowledge and then make the decision. Same in theory when it comes to purchasing a firearm. I see this all the time, especially with females. This is the best gun. You should get this gun when they walk in to purchase something. Or their husband, bless their little hearts, bring them something home. It's usually a .45 caliber. If somebody has never shot before, it's a .45 caliber. That's the best one to survive. That's the one that's going to take down the bad guy. Nothing else will work. I've heard it. I hear it all the time. But if you can't shoot it, it's going to end up hurting you or someone you love more than it's going to do helping you. Start out with what you can handle. Same thing with preparedness. Start out with what you can handle. Don't go all in. Take your steps, one foot in front of the other. Get your food supply built up. Little steps. Don't go buy one of those big $5,000 packages, please. You don't know how to cook with the food. It's dehydrated. It's freeze-dried. You're going to have water. People have this stuff stored, but then they don't have their water supplies in place. You can't eat dehydrated food without water. Well, you can, but it's probably going to suck all of the water out of your body, and you're going to end up in a whole world of hurt. You don't know how to cook with this stuff. What good is it to you? Baby steps. Start your food storage with stuff that you already eat and work your way up. A lot of people are, time is short. You need to get prepped and you need to get prepped now. That's great, but baby steps. So my time is up. I will see you tonight. We have the producers back from Goodbye World. We're going to talk about after the movie.